Hello. Today we are going to be talking about Nitro. So I want to talk about the trait and the strengths of the trait and why would you ever play it? Because if you are playing any amount of TFT right now, you don't see Nitro a lot. I think you'll occasionally see it through like stage 2 or 3, and then people get out of it pretty quickly. I think most of the time, places where you see it is you'll see it on like an Fury board for a little bit, and they almost always pivot out into the strategist version at some point, right? But Nitro is actually a very good trait and something that I play a lot of, in that I have a lot of just like comfort games on this patch that end up doing very well. We're actually looking at a few of them, but I think what we're probably going to do is we're going to talk about the strengths of the trait, places you want to look for a Nitro angle, and what kind of things you can play out of a Nitro angle. We have a few examples of games today too that were actually all on stream today. I played Nitro 3 games in a row, I think. I think they were all in a row. They might have been like one or two games in between there, but and they were all different versions of Nitro. So I think what we can do is we can look at those and we can hopefully apply a little bit of what we've talked about to those games. So first and foremost, when do you play Nitro? Why would you play Nitro? So I think the biggest thing about Nitro is that it has a lot of room to grow, but the power in it is actually in the early game. Because if you look at the win rates for boards on like stage 3 and even the win stage 2, I think, but particularly stage 3, I can't show it to you, unfortunately. I've been shown it by friends who have access to this. There's like a thing on Meta TFT where if you subscribe, you can see the win rates of like early game boards in certain rounds. And over the course of stage 3, Nitro variations have like a 70% win rate. It's like the highest percent win rate board imaginable on stage 3. So that is to say that Nitro on stage 3 is super duper strong. And that's where you'll find a lot of the value in Nitro. It's like one of the best ways to stabilize, and you can even get out of it after that for what it's worth. But it's actually not really about like the late game giant T-Hex. It's kind of just an extra, piece of pie. But yeah, it's like that's on the cake. I think most of the power in this trait is just how strong it lets you be mid game. And then the thing is that the units are good enough where it leaves you a lot of room to cap as well, without actually needing to do too much in terms of switching up your front line. It gives you a lot of artificial front line with the D-Hex, and especially if you manage to hit Shyvana 3, it can be really big. But anyways, so that's the power, and you might be like, okay, well, isn't the power in Nitro actually re-rolling all the units? And the answer to that is yes and no. I think the big thing to keep in mind with Nitro is that, generally speaking, I think, so there's actually only one thing in Nitro that you should ever look to re-roll as a carry, and in my opinion, that is Elise. So Nidalee and Kindred. Nidalee can be a good secondary carry for like an Fury board. And we'll talk about some of these boards that you can play Nitro with. And then we'll talk a little bit about like Nitro Flex as well. Nitro Flex isn't like just random stuff with Nitro. But generally speaking, I think Kindred is mediocre but not great. Nidalee is mediocre but not great. Shyvana is a decent tank. And Elise is the only one with any amount of actual carry potential. And she's actually very good. We'll actually see a game today that I played Elise as a secondary carry. And she was very strong. But the big problem with rerolling Nidalee and Kindred is that if you reroll Nidalee and Kindred, you actually end up losing a lot of the power on stage 3 that you're supposed to be looking for to make Nitro do well. Because if you were to imagine like the power curves of a Nitro game, right? Basically how it works is that you are I'm gonna put the music down a little bit. How it works is that you are really, really strong. Actually, I'm gonna the back bit. You are potentially strong on stage 2, but also potentially weak on stage 2, right? I can even, I'm going to draw this. I think this might be useful. Here we go. Ready? Let me look up, how do I search paint? I want to show you what I think the power curve of a Nitro game generally is. So, if we make a graph, right? Okay, that was terrible. We're going to make a graph, and this is like round, like what stage you're on, right? All right, this is going to be miserable. And like your power level. Power. This is not going to be that useful for anyone who's just listening. I don't know why I capitalized there. Anyways, so how strong you are versus like what part of the game. A lot of the meta right now, right, is actually very much like this. A lot of the fast 8 boards. Oh, I went blurry. One second. I can unblurify myself. one second. Let me unblurry. Okay. So a lot of the power of meta boards right now looks something like this. You start pretty weak, right? You start pretty weak, and then like stage 2, like they're all stage 2, you're pretty weak. Or if you're high rolling, you're not weak. But let's say you're pretty weak on stage stage 2. This is like loot streak level 8 boards. You get like a little bit stronger on stage 3, but you don't spike a lot, right? Maybe you're like stage 3 is there, and then your stage 4 is like this, right? And then maybe you spike again in stage 5, whatever. You go off like that. So you get like you're pretty weak on stage 2. You get a little bit stronger here, and then you go up like this. If you're playing like a reroll thing, we'll have reroll, like TF is like the main reroll thing right now, right? Generally speaking, the only reroll you'll see. So this red line is going to be TF. And what TF generally is that it's like, let's say he's pretty weak, but maybe a little bit stronger than average, but also just pretty weak, right? But then he spikes a lot on stage 3. On stage 3, he goes like here, right? So he's winning a lot of fights in stage 3. And then all of a sudden, he like isn't actually hitting till here. Normally he gets like a little bit stronger, right? Let's say he gets like a little stronger. We can even like do this. He has like this. He gets like a little bit stronger here, but then he doesn't really spike to like here. And then eventually ends up being like a similar strength, right? But it's a slightly different power curve. And so if you're playing something like TF, you really want to be strong on stage 3, because if you're not strong here, you're going to struggle a lot here, generally speaking. This like stage 4 area. And so the cool thing about Nitro is that how Nitro works, let's say you're weak again. The thing is, you're gonna be the strongest on stage 2 out of anyone if you have a Nitro opener. Out of any of these, like if you, let's say you have a bad Nitro opener, like nothing's upgraded, but you're still gonna be kind of strong. You're gonna be like kind of on par with TF. And then you actually end up spiking like about as much, if not more, than this guy. But then you also have an earlier spike as long as you're playing it from a good spot, where you're actually going like here, and you end up capping out a little bit lower often. But you can actually still reach that cap just a little bit later, right? So it looks almost like this, and so the power of this, and occasionally actually you'll just be like this. Let's actually change this a little bit, because I think you're like about the same. You get a little bit stronger than like the TF reroll board, and then you actually end up being like, let's say you like wait till like here, and then you go like there. Like it's slightly different power curve, right? Then you go up like naturally. I would even say you're like this here. You kind of are always going up a little bit. Let's even draw it again, because you're always going up a little bit, right? And then you hit like a couple power spikes that are really good. So you're kind of just like this the whole game. Like you're just like you're just going like this, right? This is not quite accurate, obviously. Like I think, like if you high roll, you'll have different spike timings and yada yada yada. But generally speaking, this is how I tend to see like the power curves of a game right now. And so Nitro is really interesting in that it has a lot of room to be really strong on stage 3. Also, a lot of capital potential, like a ton of capital potential. It can get like super high if you just hit everything. But then there's also a bunch of different variations that can all play into this. And then because you're so strong, like here, like around here, right, and you end up having this like pretty stable power curve, it's really good for farming top 4s. It's harder to win out. We will show some games where we win out today, but generally speaking, like if you play it really well, you can win out, but it can be really hard to play it well. And I think that's actually where a lot of people run into issues with Nitro, is that they don't know how to win out with it, and they like kind of play it this weird way where like they're stacking a lot of stage 3 as well, like try to follow the same spike timings as like a normal you go through roll thing, and it gets really awkward and whatever. I think one thing to keep in mind is that, again, you will have higher roll games, and I think generally speaking, Nitro is something where like it kind of necessitates like a slightly higher roll opener for it. Like, you don't have to have like Nitro on 2-1, for example. Like you can have Nitro like a little bit later in the stage if you have like a really good Nefiri angle or like a really good Vagar angle. You can have it like we'll talk about both of those comps. I think they're the two best versions of Nitro, but you can have it like a little bit later. But if like there's not a reason to play Nitro unless one of 3 things happens, generally speaking, in my opinion. You have a really good Nitro opener is the first one. You have a really good Nefiri opener, item-wise, augment-wise, etc. I mean, you have the amp augment, or you have a really good Vagar opener, item-wise, unit-wise, etc. Like Vagar pair or something, right? Generally speaking, those are the 3 conditions for you to play a Nitro game. And so every Nitro game should be high roll to like some degree. And that like you're only playing it because you're high rolling a little bit, and you'll actually find these openers like decently commonly. I think it's totally fine to just have like Nidalee pair, Kindred pair, or like Kindred 2 Nidalee pair and like a Shyvana on 2-1 and play Nitro from there. Or like you get like Lease Off Orb, like that can be assigned to play Nitro if you get 3 Nitro on 2-1. It's just knowing how to actually like play around the units and everything. So I think first and foremost we'll talk about the variations of Nitro. So I think the most common one and the one that people like still pivot out of, generally speaking, but you don't always have to, is Nefiri, right? So Nefiri, it's like Nefiri there, it's like a Jax. We've talked about this in another video too. I recommend going to watch that video. It's just how to play the dog, I think, or something, and set 14 is the name of the video. I recommend going to watch that if you want to learn more about the dog. But it's like, this is the core, right? You can drop Kindred for more amp. Like on 8, you want to play like, or on 8 you want to play like Kindred probably. Still, but then like on 9 you end up dropping Kindred and you're like Yumi plus Annie plus Samira. You fight your 5 amp. Your items on your items on this thing. On the Fury, your items on like Yumi or Annie. I actually don't like rerolling Yumi in this version because I think it's like really expensive and you miss a lot of your power spike timings because you're not rolling on 6 still. A lot of the power of this board is being able to roll on, and not the power of like every amp or not amp board, every Nitro board, that you're like really stable rolling on 6 even through stage 4. Like you're not taking huge losses generally speaking. I think there's 2 ways to play this actually, and I think the other interesting way to play this is that if you, unless you have like Gigabyss Nefiri, go for 5 amp, right? But if you actually don't have Gigabyss Nefiri and you're dual carrying Elise, and Elise 3 is something you should be looking for in a lot of these Nitro lines because it is a great dual carry. What you can actually do is something like this, where you keep Kindred because you just have like, I think if you have a bunch of items here and a bunch of items on Elise, if you play 5 amp, you're losing a lot of, like you're not giving your Elise anything, right? And Elise is a big part of your damage in that situation. And so I actually really like playing 4 Nitro if I ever have a bunch of Elise items. This is true for like, for other spots too, like Vagar games and whatnot as well. But if the power budget of your board is exclusively on Nefiri or like Elise 2 with like a Morello's, play 5 amp, right? But if you're Nefiri 3 with items and you're also Elise 3 with items, it's totally fine to, especially on 8 before you, like on 8 you can like drop for 4 amp, but on 8 often what I'll do is keep playing 4 Dynamo or 4 Nitro, and then like you can always just say like, okay, I'm gonna add in like an Aurora, maybe you hit an Aurora, maybe you hit a Zac or something. You can play another amp here on 8, but you should almost always be playing 4 Nitro until you get to 5 amp, assuming that you have Elise with items, which a lot of these spots you should have Elise with items. You know, just like Morello, even like a Morello Shiv GS Elise pumps. Like she's actually a demon. So definitely play around her. A lot of the key to like staying in Nitro is building Elise items, just taking augments and you know, or taking augments that like give you a bunch of extra items. Like playing it on portals that are naturally gonna give you items, like the double item anvil one, or just like ones with, you know, just more econ in general, or just more resources in general. And then it just lets you get to like a really high cap, like Nefiri 3, Elise 3, etc. I mean, there was one game today, we can look at this real quickly. These are all just games where, oh, this is actually the wrong game. This game is a little funny. This game. So this is the stage 3 of a dog game. I don't even have a good, I don't even have a really particularly good exo. I'm just playing like, you know, anti-heal. My stage 3 is, I think I ended up losing one fight just barely, but really speaking, you can see like the power curve of the game is that I'm really strong through stage 3. I'm like winning a bunch of fights. I have a lot of dogs natural, which is why I decided to play dog this game. And so we win a lot of this stage. We end up hitting dog really early. We actually spiked like really fast, which is interesting. And that's kind of the cool thing about Nitro, is that you actually, because you have such a strong stage 3 and you have to spend so little money generally to stabilize on stage 3. Sorry, this is, you can't see this actually, but this is 4-1 right now that we just got to. That was all of stage 3 that we just went through. We can even make this a little bigger actually. Do this. You have like a lot of room to actually spike even earlier. So if you go back to that graph, I would even maybe like put the power spike of Nitro kind of along with like the 4-2 spike with all the level 8 players. And so once you get something like this with good resources, right? Like it's just a clap. You just go crazy. You win a lot of extra fights, like everything's going hog wild. Greater Moonlight's a cool thing here, where it's like I'm dual carrying Italy this game, and there's a lot of flexibility with dual carries. You know, I said that Elise is the only thing that's generally worth carrying. It's the only thing worth rerolling unless you like really digging for, I would say. Like don't dig for Italy 3. If you know, it's better to just level than it is to dig for Italy 3 and just put items on like a Yumi or like an Annie or a Samira or something. But at least 3 is worth putting items on, and then if you do that, then that's when you play like 4 Nitro. But if you have something like Greater Moonlight that lets you play around the Nidalee for free, you can see this board, like, it's between the Jax and the Nidalee until I get to, eventually I get to a Sejuani, and it ends up just being only on the Nidalee. But this ends up being, like, a really, really strong spot for Nidalee to be a dual carry, which is, like, a bunch of extra items. And so the cool thing about Nitro is that it connects to so many pieces that, you know, you can, like, dip out of things really easily, play around Amp, play around Dynamo, play around Bastions, etc. And there's a lot of just variations that are really easy to get into because this core is so strong of Dynamo as a team-wide trait. every version of it, almost every version of it should be playing Dynamo. So this team I trade of Dynamo is really good. Amp is like a really strong synergy to go vertically in if you want to play an Amp carry. Like you can just play Yumi carry, I'm sure, on this board as well. You just have a bunch of Yumis, don't even play the dog. Or maybe you do play the dog in like a Sejuani. But, you know, if you're like have a bunch of Yumis, just go 7, roll there, like reroll Yumi Elise or something. That sounds totally fine. Sounds totally fine. And it's really just about leveraging your power spike timings. It's really hard to play. I will say, like, it's really punishing to play Nitro poorly, but if you are really cognizant of your spike timings and making sure you're not overspending in spots where you can't be strong anyways, or are spending gold in spots where you should be strong, this ends up being a very, very consistent way to play the game from, like, a mediocre opener. We can even look at the opener of this game. Spoiler, I do win it. End up on, like, Nidalee carry with, like, Samira. I end up beating this, like, super capped player board at the end of the game. I see super capped. He's not Z2 yet, but, you know, it's like Senna 3, Jarvan 3. Here's the Z2, and it just kind of gets rolled over. And this one is an example of, like a bunch of amps as extra carries, right? You can even see the stage 2 of this game is, I don't think it's, like, crazy good. I mean, I think I have, like, a decent one, because I take spoils, and a lot of people are playing pipeline, and so it's just, you know, not a lot of Nitro units exactly. I just had a couple dogs and some Nitro units early, so decided to play it, and ends up being a good stage because people are looking to go fast 8, and you can really take advantage of that, right? I'm getting a lot of dogs naturally, which is really good. I think spoils is really good because it's just snowbally, but this Nitro core becomes really, really potent throughout the entire game. This is again an example of a game where I get out of 4 Nitro to play 3 Nitro because I don't need the extra. I don't need the extra damage from the T-Hex. It's better just pump damage in the Neferi because I don't have any items on Elise. Again, the power budget of your board is really important to keep track of, because if you have a bunch of items on Elise, then make sure that you're playing things that make both Elise and they just make your board stronger in general. Because like the text doesn't buff your Neferi, doesn't buff your Elise, but it does just do a lot of extra damage for free, and it's not like, you can kind of see it as buffing your board in general, right? It's like a full board buff as for Nitro is, versus like playing into a singular carry like something like an extra amp is, or like an extra dynamo is. It's still more team-wide than an extra amp, but you get what I mean. So yeah, that's like an inferior version. Again, it's like all about making sure that you're strong level 6. You're playing like a tempo-y game. And that's kind of the name of the game, I guess, with it really, is that it's all about the tempo. And so you can't play it if you're not finding any amount of tempo. I'm going to be talking about 3-2 in a video tomorrow, and about how to stabilize on 3-2 and how to play a 3-2 roll down and everything about 3-2 basically. But that video is going to be really good in conjunction with this video, because Nitro is like the poster child for you need to set yourself up well for a 3-2, and it will steamroll games if you do that. If you do it properly, you'll just set up your game super, super well. So that's the Neferi version. I think I want to talk about this version next, because this is something that's played a lot less now, and also like a little differently, I think. I play it than other people. But so it's the Veigar version, and so your core is actually this. Generally speaking, by the way, you always drop Kindred on 6 on all of these boards. So like the Neferi board, just don't play Kindred on 6. It's fine. Just play. You always prioritize. It's always going to be stronger to play like 3 Exo plus Nitro, or in this situation, the thing you take out is actually Kindred for Morgana, and then you add Kindred back in on 7. And so you're like, maybe like, okay, I mean, this is kind of similar to like the original. I remember like Veigar Nitro being decent on PBE, but it kind of fell off a little bit, and you're like, well, what's going on here? Why is this Morg even here? Like, what does 2 Nitro do with this board? Or 2 Dynamo. I always call Nitro Dynamo. And so I would argue that the reason why Veigar feels only playable with Veigar augments right now is that people have stopped playing this, right? It feels pretty playable with Cyberboss augments, but like pretty non-playable otherwise. But when you play this version of the board from like a high roll spot, or even just like a slightly high roll spot, right? You just have Poppy 2 and a Veigar plus like some Nitro units or something. This feels really, really, really good. What you do, generally speaking here, in my opinion, is you reroll Shyvana, Veigar, and you want to look for at least 3 as well if you can. If you can't find at least 3, at least 2 is fine. But you do want to itemize at least in this board, and if you can get to at least 3, it's so good. You can roll on 7 potentially. It's like one of those things where I think there's a lot of people rolling for TF, for example, on 7 right now, like a 2-cost roll on 7 thing that can be good situationally. But with TF as well, you should always be analyzing your spot and trying to decide whether you should be rolling on 7 or rolling on 6, because there's no universal answer, right? It really has to do with spike timings. Some situations with TF, you should roll on 6 versus roll on 7. I bought for a game today because I rolled on 7 instead of 6, where I rolled on 6 earlier, hit my power spike at a, sooner chance, a sooner point, and it would have been a really good game, and instead I just died because I didn't hit anything in the right amount of time. And Techie's very similar in that, if you want to roll on 7 for this, sure, go ahead, because you want to hit at least 3 as well. If you want to roll on 6, which I think is arguably a lot better, do it. If you don't hit at least 3, that means you probably hit Vagar 3 pretty fast, because you're playing it, again, this is all about playing this stuff from a good spot, and a good spot is pretty common, realistically. It's having Nitro Opener on stage 2, or it's having, like, Vagars on stage 2, or Nefiri's on stage 2, or just even having a good Exo item for Nefiri or something on stage 2, and then, opening into this. Yeah, you don't need Nitro in on 2-1. I think that's a big myth. If you don't have Nitro in on 2-1, you can still play Nitro. It's all about the stage 3. Because the size of the T-Hex really doesn't matter. Like, if you 3-star one of them, you're going to get to the T-Hex anyways. If you don't 3-star one of them, you're not going to get the T-Hex anyways. It's just about that body on the field and, like, a stable front line. And again, the big stage 3. So, totally fine to play this without Nitro in on 2-1. Anyway, so Vagar. So the cool thing about Vagar in this board is that 2 Dynamo actually like breaks Vagar. And I want to show you something real quick, because this is this Vagar game. This is a Vagar game that I played. If you're really far ahead, you can actually greed for Nitro to get extra Nitro stacks. But I want to show you the effect of Dynamo on Vagar's cast real quick. And you can see the stage 3 of this game as well is just total. Everyone gets clapped because it's just so strong. And I have upgrades and police. So I should be playing Dynamo if I want to be winning, and I don't play it here, and I should have. But look at the effect of Dynamo on Vagar's cast, right? Let's just watch this next fight. Having 2 Dynamo in, so he's auto cast, then he's auto cast, then he's auto cast, and then at this point. Okay, the fight's actually a little bit awkward because he's auto caster too. But he had to walk a little bit. But you can kind of see, and what happens fight to fight is that what happens is you actually end up getting a lot of 2 auto casts when you're playing Blue Buff Vagar with Dynamo on the board, which totally fixes his kit in like an obscene way. Because the problem with Vagar and the reason why he feels pretty unplayable until you get to like 4 Cyber Boss and stuff, is that Vagar really struggles super hard at wasting mana. Like if he ults like a 1 HP thing, or he ults something he doesn't kill and then that's left 1 HP, you have some really big problems happening, right? And so this board does 2 things to fix that. And the reason why you need the augments generally is that 1, they're so strong, and then 2, like getting to 4 Cyber Boss just makes it, you have so much strength on your board that doesn't even matter. And you have so much like random AoE and damage on your board from like Ziggs and stuff that doesn't even matter. But you can actually find that way sooner. And the big problem with like the Bastion version of Vagar, for example, is that when you play Bastion Vagar, he's the only thing doing damage, and so he'll be met with that problem quite frequently. But when you're playing this Dynamo version, especially with items on Elise as well, what happens is that Elise is like constantly cleaning up and setting up kills for Vagar, and 2 Dynamo is making him cast more and waste less mana. I'm sure we can actually see it in some fights over the stage 3 or we didn't even look at stage 4 of like Elise setting up kills and Vagar. Here, let's watch this fight. Let's see if it happens. So Vagar, it's auto cast. This is the same fight, but auto cast. Everything. So that thing's left on 1 HP. Okay, actually he does hold it. It's fine. At least in the rest of the backline, clean up that thing. So Elise is gonna clean up this thing here. Okay. Elise actually ends up hitting the backline after that thing cleans up. I also have. This is actually stage 5, by the way. This is not what I want to look at. I want to look at stage 4. Yeah, okay, after we hit. Okay. So it was auto cast, blows it up. Blows it up. You can see Elise ends up cleaning up that thing. Right? She's just like setting up kills. Like the Vagar AoE is killing everything. Elise is helping kill everything. She's also reducing MR of things in the front line. They just work super duper well together. And 2 Dynamo just makes Vagar... Like, it's his secret third synergy, in my opinion, is 2 Dynamo. 2 Dynamo changes Vagar as a unit entirely. He is 10 times better with 2 Dynamo. So if you are playing Vagar at any capacity... Or not, I guess if you're playing Cyber Boss Vagar, it's probably too hard to fit. But if you can... Are you playing the Nitro Vagar? Fit 2 Dynamo, it's... absolutely gross. It is disgustingly good. I do end up winning this game as well. We can see that the end up capping out with 4 Cyber Boss, which this is often when you cap out on, is you end up going for 4 Cyber Boss, but you can actually see why 4 Nitro is so good in some spots, because look at this next fight, or not this fight, look at this fight, look at the T-Hex, you ready? Watch the T-Hex. This is why 4 Nitro is like really good when you're playing multiple carries in a Nitro board, because like the whole back line, you can see is just dead. They're just dead. They're gone. They're 1 HP, they're gonna just die to like random AoE now. And so generally speaking, like 4 Nitro is really strong. Because the thing is, I have Elise 3 and I have Veigar 3. Sure, I could play more Techie, or I could play like another Dynamo or something. I guess you can play another Dynamo there and it's probably fine too. It's reasonable to say like Aurora is as good as Kindred there. Maybe if I didn't have like as much Dino stacks, or as many Dino stacks. But generally speaking, it's really good to look for that 4 Nitro if you have a bunch of items on an Elise 3. Because if you do, your board quality gets better without sacrificing anything, right? Because if you play an amp unit, you're buffing your amp, yeah, like you're in a theory, but not doing anything to your Elise, which it makes your board better, but like less so. If you play another Dynamo, same kind of deal. It's like a little bit better for the board. But if you play another Nitro in that situation where your power budget is not just, you know, Neferi has 3 rating items and everything else does nothing, it's really good. And I think that's kind of another aspect of Nitro that is really important to acknowledge, is that when you're taking, because I can say like, hey, take this augment, take that augment, whatever, but generally speaking, it should be more useful to have the reasoning for taking an augment. And the reasoning for taking any kind of augment on a Nitro board is generally to make the whole board better, in my opinion. So that's why like items are really good, right? Because you just get to itemize another carry. That's why like lineup is really good. Like that took in that other game, right? Spoils is good because you just get to get more gold in your board, and the board has a lot of room to get gold on it. So just things that just let you pump more value in your entire board. Like there are versions of it where you can just like you can take a radiant item and put it on Neferi, right? But like this Veigar version, for example, I would pretty much never take a radiant item, because this board very much was like the whole board is chipping in. And like it was very different than like the Neferi board, where Neferi was doing all the work, right? Because I had so much extra gold on my board from like the portal being rerolls and whatnot, that Elise was a big part of my damage. And so trying to get things that make both of them better, or just make the board better as a whole, really important. It's really good to make sure that you are acknowledging pretty early in a game whether you're playing for like a 1v10 Neferi type deal, or if you're playing for like, because that can work on Nitro, right? It's just a core for that. But or if you're playing for that idea of like my whole board is chipping in, my Mord's gonna do damage, my Elise is gonna do damage, my Veigar's gonna do damage, my Shyvana's gonna tank, my Nidalee's gonna chip in. Because if you acknowledge that and you play around that well, it's you know, if you can figure out which one you're playing around and like take resources that match, very strong resources, including augments here, right? So you know, there's no augment that's just like universally broken in Nitro or anything. You just have to acknowledge what kind of version you're playing, what you already have taken. You know, if you have a bunch of items already, maybe it's harder to play for the 1v10 thing, and so you want to just like get the whole board wide value. Yeah, there's a lot of complexity to Nitro, and I think it's, again, really rewarding if you make sure you're playing around your spike timings well, playing around your stage 3 super well, and really rewarding if you understand like these different versions and their strengths, like the spots to play them. Again, the spots, if you have like, I've talked about it a couple times, but like Neferis or Veigars or like Nitro opener on 2-1. And so we'll go to the final one, which is a bit of a Nitro flex thing. And you can certainly play Nitro flex without Veigar or Neferi. They're just the 2 most consistent ways to play the board, in my opinion. But there are ways to play it otherwise. Like I played like Elise 3, for example, recently with like just, it was just like I hit a bunch of Elises, so I just like kind of tempoed into Elise 3 with some baby Nikos, and then ended up playing like Aurora on the board and whatnot, and that's totally fine. You can cap out like that as well. In that situation, you almost always play the T-Hex because it's a lot of extra value. But you can certainly play other weird stuff as well. Like there's this game today, which I want to just talk about a little bit. I took Jack's Hero Augment and decided to play Nitro with it. And I ended up like rolling down on 3-1. I have a lot of dogs as well. So I end up playing this weird thing of like, I'm playing dog plus Jack's dual carry. So because I have Hero Augment, you can tell already that I'm playing a version of Nitro where I'm like very hyper focused on a single carry doing things. It ends up being like 2 carries doing things, but like I'm trying to put as much value into this Jax as possible because I already have resources that point me in that direction, right? And so I end up in this like super scuffed board that's like Nidalee 3, Jax 3, fucking Flux Capacitor and Fury 3, right? And this game looks bad. And Jack's hero augment is bad. Don't click this augment. It is terrible. But because Nitro is such a strong core, I actually end up top 4ing this game, just kind of barely, but I ended up top 4ing with like what is maybe one of the worst augments, if not the worst augment in the game, because I just get so much tempo over the course of stage 3, right? I saved so much HP, and I left myself room to get stronger naturally every single turn because, you know, I'm just constantly getting better. My Nitro dummy is constantly getting a little bit stronger. I'm like having some good matchups still. That I end up just like having so much HP. I'm still winning fights on stage 4 and 5, you can see, right? Like the power curve of the comp is very stable. You're not going to just fall off randomly at all. And so I just take a nice solid 4th. I take a nice solid 4th in a lobby that's very, very, very strong. And I took Jack's hero augment. So that is say there is a lot of room for just like creativity in Nitro. But the key to doing it, the key to making sure your Nitro games are good is make sure you have a strong stage 3, but make sure it's in a way where you don't have to roll the 0, generally speaking, right? Like make sure, and we'll talk about this a lot in the 3-2 video tomorrow, but make sure you have a really, really strong stage 3. Make sure you're aware of the conditions on stage 2 that make you want to play Nitro. We talked about maybe you have Vagars, maybe you have Nitro on 2-1. Maybe you have like tier Vagar on bench and like a Shyvana. Maybe you have like exo item on Nefiri, or a good exo item Nefiri. Or maybe, honestly, maybe you just have like a decent exo item on Nefiri, you're really comfortable on the line, and you're uncontested, right? And that's totally fine as well. I think another condition, which is really important, is that you can, like, you want to be in a spot where you can win stage 3. If you lose like one fight on stage 3, it's not the end of the world, you're okay. But if you like go like loss on stage 3 because you're like trying to reroll dog and like trying to greed all your money and stay at 50, and you're just gonna die. Like you're just gonna die. And so like the spot to play Nitro really is when you can see yourself having a good stage 3 based on the lobby dynamic. Maybe you see like one TF player who is, you know, mid roll or like lightly high roll, and that's the only, because everyone else is going fast 8, then you're chilling. Right, as long as you have a decent opener. You do not need Nitro on 2-1 to play Nitro Angle, but if you don't have Nitro on 2-1, it should never be Nitro Flex. It should always be either Vagar or Nefiri, and you should be playing it because you have reason to play one of those things. And yeah, if you lose stage 2, it's fine. Again, stage 3 is where it's like really important, and making sure that you stabilize on stage 3 without investing a ton of resources into it is in your gold. So you still have room to like reroll on 6. So a lot of the power in it, like I said before, is that like you have some insane spike timings on 6, and if you don't have spike timings on 6, and instead you have like you actually like at least 2 and want to go 7 and play flex, whatever, go for it, man. As long as you're stable on stage 3, you can. The world's your oyster. But generally speaking, the easiest way to like spike after, you know, win streaking in stage 3 is by rerolling 2 costs the entirety of stage 3, and then you end up getting like again like Nefiri 3 or Vagar 3. Or Shyvana, plus Shyvana 3 or something by the end, like middle of stage 4, which is then like a really good spike, and you're still getting stronger and stronger and stronger, and then maybe you're getting 4 Nitro back in on level 7 then, and then on 8 you're playing like a Ziggs if you're playing Vagar, or you're playing like another Dynamo because you hit an Aurora, or you're playing another Amp unit, and then you hit 5 Amp, and then maybe you drop something. If you're playing Nefiri. So there's all kinds of variations, but that core idea of like have a good stage 3 while you still like while leaving yourself room to grow is really, really important. And this board is really good at winning stage 3. Super good at winning it, as long as you're playing it from good spots. So when I say this board, I mean like, you know, three Nitro plus stuff. So, or 4 Nitro plus stuff potentially if you want to be greedy with it because you think you're going to win anyways. Also, I'll leave you with this. Play at least 1 over Kindred 2 on almost every board. At least 1 is very, very good. Very, 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 very good. So, and that like 2 Dynamo is broken, and she holds Umbrellos super well. So, yeah. Okay. I mean, I think item-wise, you guys can probably figure it out. Hope you guys enjoyed this. Best of luck in your Nitro games, and I'll catch you next time. Bye-bye!